Before online shopping and Amazon Prime, Britain's high streets were lined with grand department stores. Temples of commerce where families spent Saturday afternoons browsing floors of fashion, homewares, and dreams. These weren't just shops, they were landmarks, meeting places, and symbols of civic pride. Names like Woolworths, Lewis's, and Debenhams were woven into the fabric of everyday life. But one by one, they vanished, victims of debt, competition, and changing times. This is the story of the department stores we lost and the memories they left behind. Picture a Saturday morning in 1978. You're trailing behind your mum through the automatic doors of British Home Stores, that solid, no-nonsense chain that opened its first branch in Brixton back in 1928. Created by a group of American entrepreneurs who wanted to bring a bit of Woolworths magic to Britain, BHS started life as a variety store where nothing cost more than a shilling. By the time you were shopping there in the 70s and 80s, it had grown into a futzer 100 giant with 94 stores nationwide, selling everything from affordable clothing to kettles and toasters. The layout was simple: self-service aisles, a small cafeteria tucked in the corner where you could grab a cup of tea and a bun, and rows of household basics that didn't break the bank. Some branches even partnered with Sainsbury's to create hypermarket-style Sava Centre sites. BHS was where families bought school uniforms, where you picked up new curtains or a cheap electric kettle without fuss. It wasn't glamorous, it was dependable, but years of losses and a crippling pension deficit caught up with it. In April 2016, BHS entered administration, and by the end of August that year, all 22 remaining stores had shut their doors for good. The demise of BHS symbolised something bigger: the struggle of mid-market department stores to survive in a world of online shopping and discount fashion. For those who remember it, BHS wasn't just a shop. It was a fixture, a constant, a piece of the everyday high street that simply isn't there anymore. If there's one shop that defines British nostalgia, it's Woolworths. The red and gold shopfront was as much a part of the high street as the post office or the butcher. When Frank Winfield Woolworth decided to bring his American 5 and 10 cent store concept across the Atlantic, he opened the first British branch in Liverpool on the 5th of November 1909. The idea was simple: everything for sixpence or less laid out on long counters where you could browse to your heart's content. It worked. By the 20s and 30s, Woolworths was opening a new store every 17 days, spreading across towns and cities like wildfire. Inside, you could buy almost anything: stationery, household essentials, toys, records, and of course the legendary pick and mix sweets. Those plastic scoops, the rows of fizzy cola bottles and chocolate mice, the thrill of weighing your own bag at the counter. It was a rite of passage for every British child. Woolworths gradually shifted from counter service to self-service layouts after 1955, but the cheerful, good value spirit remained. It was the place you bought your first single, your Christmas decorations, your emergency birthday card. But after World War II, growth stalled. Woolworths was slow to modernise, and supermarkets and discount chains began eating into its territory. By late 2008, buried under rising debt and fierce competition, the chain entered administration. All 807 stores closed by early 2009. The loss was felt like a death in the family. Woolworths wasn't just a shop, it was a constant, a comforting part of childhood that simply vanished. And the high street has never quite felt the same since. Long before shopping centres and retail parks, there was Lewis's, a grand department store that stood proudly in city centres across the North and Midlands. Founded in Liverpool in 1856 by entrepreneur David Lewis, it began as a men's and boys' outfitter with a motto that became legendary: Friends of the People. Lewis wasn't content with one shop. By 1877 he'd opened in Manchester, then Birmingham in 1885, and soon Lewis's became a fixture in major cities, offering clothing, footwear, tobacco, and eventually the full department store experience. But Lewis's wasn't just about shopping, it was about spectacle. The Liverpool flagship became a landmark, with its famous Dickie Lewis statue greeting shoppers at the entrance. In Manchester, the fifth-floor ballroom hosted dances and exhibitions, turning a shopping trip into an event. And every Christmas, families flocked to see the elaborate grottos, queuing round the block for a glimpse of Father Christmas in his magical winter kingdom. The stores were huge, imposing buildings that anchored their streets, blending commerce with culture in a way that felt almost civic. But by the early 90s, recession and competition had taken their toll. Lewis's went into administration in 1991, and most branches were sold off or rebranded. The last remaining store in Liverpool clung on until May 2010, when its lease couldn't be renewed and the doors closed for good. Older generations still talk about those Christmas grottos, the ballroom dances, the sense that Lewis's was more than a shop. It was an institution. Its closure marked the end of an era for regional department stores, a reminder that even friends of the people couldn't survive forever. Walk into any town centre in the 70s or 80s, and you'd likely spot the bright, open-plan shopfront of C&A. Founded in the Netherlands back in 1841 by brothers Clemens and August Brenninkmeijer, the chain crossed the Channel and opened its first UK stores in 1922. By the 60s, C&A had become the go-to destination for affordable, continental-style fashion, clothes that felt a bit more modern than your usual high street fare, but didn't cost the earth. The stores were clean, spacious, and full of prominent sale rails where you could hunt for bargains on a Saturday afternoon. C&A sold fashion for the whole family, men's shirts, women's dresses, and plenty for the kids. But it was the Clockhouse label that really captured the teenage market. If you were young in the 80s, chances are you owned a Clockhouse jacket or a pair of jeans from C&A. The brand's catchy TV adverts and glossy catalogues pushed the message hard. Fashionable clothing at low prices with just a hint of European flair. Many town centre malls were anchored by a C&A branch, and for years it seemed like it would be there forever. But in June 2000, the announcement came. All 113 UK stores would close. Falling profits and a brutally competitive clothing market had forced the Dutch parent company to pull out of Britain entirely, choosing instead to refocus on mainland Europe and Asia. The closures were swift, and by early 2001, C&A had vanished from British high streets. For many, it was where they'd bought their first pair of proper jeans, their first grown-up coat, their first taste of affordable style. Its departure wasn't just a business decision, it was the end of an era for traditional clothing chains. Before the internet, before Argos catalogues dominated kitchen tables, there was Littlewoods, and for millions of British families, it was a lifeline. Sir John Moores started the business in Liverpool in 1923 as a football pools operation, but by 1932 he'd expanded into mail-order catalogues, and in 1937 the first Littlewoods department store opened its doors in Blackpool. By the post-war decades, Littlewoods had become Europe's largest private company, employing around 25,000 people and dominating the high street and the living room alike. The stores themselves were grand affairs, often housed in purpose-built Art Deco premises like the one at Merry Hill. Inside, you'd find floors stocked with clothing, footwear, homewares, and toys alongside collection points, where you could pick up orders from the famous catalogue. And what a catalogue it was, thick as a telephone directory, packed with everything from winter coats to cutlery sets, flicked through by families circling their Christmas wish lists in biro. Many households used the club system, where a local agent would collect weekly payments, making even big purchases feel manageable. Littlewoods didn't just sell goods, it sold aspiration on easy credit. The brand's adverts were everywhere, promoting not just the stores, but the pools and the catalogues weaving Littlewoods into the fabric of British life. But by the turn of the millennium, competition was mounting. Argos, Primark, and the rise of online shopping eroded sales year after year. The Moores family sold the business to the Barclay brothers in 2002, and by 2005, after the loss-making Index chain was shuttered and the merger with Kay's, the physical Littlewood stores closed for good. The catalogues lingered a while longer, but the magic was gone. For those who grew up with it, Littlewoods wasn't just a shop. It was a ritual, a rite of passage, a dog-eared dream book that sat on the sideboard all year long. For more than a century, Beales was a fixture on the Southern English High Street, a family-run department store that prided itself on old-fashioned service and seasonal charm. John Elmers Beale opened the first shop in Bournemouth in 1881, calling it the Fancy Fair and Oriental House, a name that hinted at the exotic imports and decorative goods inside. Over the decades, Beales grew steadily, acquiring struggling rivals and planting roots in market towns across the South and Midlands. By the mid-20th century, it had become a beloved regional chain, with 23 branches offering mid-market fashions, homewares, and gifts. The Bournemouth flagship was Dorset's largest department store, its ornate facade and traditional wooden interiors evoking a gentler era of retail. But Beales was most famous for something else entirely. In 1885, it claimed to have hosted the world's first in-store Father Christmas, turning its festive grotto into an annual pilgrimage for local children. For generations, visiting Santa at Beales became a ritual, queuing in the toy department, whispering wishes, clutching a small gift on the way out. The store's Christmas promotions were legendary, and that seasonal magic kept customers loyal even as bigger chains moved in. Yet by the 2000s, Beales was struggling. Footfall declined, online shopping boomed, and the costs of maintaining aging stores mounted. On the 20th of January 2020, the company entered administration, and by the 18th of March, all 23 branches had closed, just as the pandemic was beginning to take hold. A brief revival saw the Poole store reopen later that year, but it too shut for good in May 2025. For those who grew up with Beales, it wasn't just a shop. It was where you met Santa, where your mother bought your school shoes, where the high street still felt like a community. Its closure marked another quiet defeat for independent, family-owned retail. Not all department stores vanished. Fenwick is one of the survivors, still family-owned and still trading, though its footprint has shrunk in recent years. John James Fenwick, a mantle maker and furrier, opened the first store in Newcastle upon Tyne in 1882, inspired by the grand Parisian department store Le Bon Marché. His vision was simple: bring a touch of continental elegance to the northeast and offer quality over quantity. The Newcastle flagship grew to occupy multiple buildings along Northumberland Street, becoming a beloved local institution. Shoppers came not just for luxury fashion, cosmetics and homewares, but for the experience: attentive staff, beautifully dressed windows, and a sense that you were treating yourself to something special. By the early 2000s, Fenwick had become the UK's most profitable department store per square foot. A remarkable achievement for an independent family business. But it was the Christmas windows that truly captured hearts. Every November, crowds gathered outside the Newcastle and London stores to watch the unveiling of elaborate animated displays, fairy tales brought to life in miniature, with moving characters, twinkling lights, and intricate scenery. For children in the northeast, it was as much a part of Christmas as mince pies and carols. Fenwick opened branches in Bond Street, Brent Cross, York, Canterbury and other cities, always maintaining that upmarket, service-oriented approach. Yet the pressures of modern retail caught up even with Fenwick. The family sold the Bond Street building in 2022, and the Mayfair branch closed in 2023 due to soaring property costs. Today, Fenwick survives with 8 stores, but older shoppers lament the loss of some regional outposts and worry that the family chain may one day join the roll call of the vanished. If there was one department store that felt truly national, it was Debenhams. Its roots stretch back to 1778, when William Clark opened a draper's shop in London. By 1813, he'd partnered with William Debenham, and over the next 2 centuries the firm grew into a retail giant, with more than 200 stores across 18 countries at its peak. Debenhams became the anchor tenant of countless British high streets, its large multi-floor buildings offering everything from cosmetics and handbags to furniture and children's wear. Inside, you'd find concessions like Red Herring and designers at Debenhams, exclusive fashion lines by the likes of Jasper Conran, Betty Jackson, and Julian MacDonald, designer names at high street prices. There were in-house cafes where you could rest between floors, and beauty counters where staff in white coats offered free makeovers. For many families, Debenhams was where you went to set up a wedding list, buy your first suit, or splash out on perfume at Christmas. The glossy catalogues and TV adverts made it feel aspirational, yet accessible, and the Christmas window displays drew crowds every year. But behind the polished facade, trouble was brewing. By the 2000s, Debenhams was weighed down by heavy debt, high rents, and fierce competition from online retailers and fast fashion chains. It entered administration in 2019, struggled on for a while, and then collapsed for good in December 2020. The remaining 124 stores closed in May 2021, their shelves stripped bare in closing down sales. For many, it was a gut punch. Debenhams had been there for 2.5 centuries, surviving wars, recessions, and changing fashions. Its demise felt like the end of an era, a final confirmation that the high street as we knew it was fading into history. Head to Croydon in South London, and older locals will still point to the empty shell on North End and say, "That used to be Alders." Joshua Alder opened his linen draper and silk mercer there in 1862, and over the next century and a half, the business grew into a sprawling 6-floor department store that became the beating heart of Croydon's shopping district. By 1908, it boasted 50 departments, selling everything from fabrics and furniture to toys and tea sets. In 1926, the store unveiled a grand unified facade along North End, and in 1932, it added an arcade linking through to George Street. Croydon's first escalators were installed in 1954, gliding shoppers between floors of fashion, homewares, and household goods. For decades, Alders was a point of civic pride, a proper department store in a town that sometimes felt overlooked by central London. Families came to browse on Saturdays, mothers brought daughters to buy their first bra, and the Christmas window displays were an annual tradition. At its height in the late 1990s, Alders was the UK's 3rd largest department store chain, but the turn of the millennium brought trouble. After a disastrous acquisition of the Maples furniture chain and years of weak sales, the company entered administration in 2005. Most branches closed immediately, but the Croydon flagship survived under new ownership. For a while, it limped on until January 2013, when it finally shut its doors for good, leaving behind a vast, empty building and a community in mourning. Alders even had a cameo in a 1990 episode of Mr. Bean, cementing its place in popular culture. For those who shopped there, it wasn't just a store, it was a landmark, a meeting place, a piece of Croydon's identity that could never quite be replaced. Some department stores were national chains, others belonged to a single town, woven so deeply into local life that they became part of its identity. Jackson's of Reading was one of those. Edward Jackson opened E. Jackson & Sons as a gentleman's outfitter on the 17th of September 1875, and over the next century and a half, it grew into Reading's principal department store. At its peak, Jackson's had 7 branches across Berkshire and Oxfordshire, but it was the flagship at Jackson's Corner, the junction of Broad Street and King's Road, that everyone remembered. The building was famous for 2 things: the Hollywood-style Jackson's Corner sign that jutted out above the pavement, and the quirky Lamson pneumatic tube system installed in the 1940s. When you paid for something, the cashier would pop your money and receipt into a metal canister, send it whooshing through a network of tubes to the central office, and moments later, your change would come rattling back. Kids loved it. Inside, Jackson sold women's wear, lingerie, shoes, crafts and textiles, but it was best known as Reading's go-to supplier of school uniforms. Generations of local children were measured, fitted and kitted out in blazers and ties at Jackson's, often with a reward of cake at the in-store cafe afterwards. But by the 2000s, the costs of maintaining the aging building had become unsustainable, and the modern Oracle shopping centre had lured shoppers away. In 2012, staff were quietly told the news, and on Christmas Eve, 2013, after 138 years of trading, Jackson's closed for the final time. The Jackson's Corner sign remains in place, a cherished local landmark, but the store beneath it is gone. For Reading residents, it wasn't just the loss of a shop, it was the loss of a ritual, a rite of passage, a piece of their own history